Episode 31 of Just Returned, my friends. This one's entitled Painful Truth. The days were long for Belle over the next few weeks, and though it was true that Gus was getting stronger, he couldn't join Belle for the foraging trips and was dependent upon her for everything. Indeed, in some ways Belinda felt more like a daughter now than ever, and he appreciated her very much. He had questioned her to find out where she'd obtained the ointment, and he was sure that she saved his life by a marathon swim to the native village. Belle, for some reason, was now singing the words of a song her father had taught her about a gunfighter in the Wild West called Ringo. I felt a blast that stung my wrist. The gun went flying from my fist. He smiled at me and said, "We're even friend." And then she sang, I blocked the path of his retreat. He turned and walked into the street. A dozen guns spit fire and lead. A moment later he lay dead. Ringo. It was the years, they say, that made me put my guns away. But on his grave they can't explain the tarnished star above the name of Ringo. As a child, her and her father had acted out that song as they sung it, and he always played the part of Ringo. Strangely prophetic, Belle thought, and it had never occurred to her until now. Anyway, while Gus thought that they were now even friends, Belle wasn't sure about that. Maybe he would have lived anyway. In a way, all she'd done was gone to the doctor. Come apothecary, she was just a messenger. One evening, it was the third Tuesday after the swim up the river, but she wasn't 100% sure about the days anymore. She was sitting by the fire with a coffee, as they called it, and in the firelight she was reading the last few pages of the novel Whistleblower, which she'd been reading for the second time. She got mixed feelings about the story. She enjoyed the terribly English characters, but was reminded of the dark world between the superpowers. In some ways here was better. In some ways here was home. In some ways she felt like she belonged. In some ways she felt as much a stranger here as the day she'd arrived. She was surprised when Gus came and joined her. He chuckled as he sat beside her and asked for coffee. Belle was pleased, but as they sat there discussing his continued recovery, Belle knew that there were things to be talked about. She just could not leave it any longer. Gus, she began, since we came here you've been like a very good uncle to me, a kind, considerate gentleman. Not once have you caused me to lack trust for you, and I've been impressed with your manners, respect and kindness. But Belinda, I have been overwhelmed by your consideration and goodness to me. We are being a good team, yeah? Yeah, Gus. Yeah. She drew in a deep breath, but did not know how to begin. She sipped her coffee and took in another deep breath. Belinda, what is it? What troubles you? When you were sick, Gus, you were delirious. You were ranting and raving. You said things and you troubled me. I want to know, were they hallucinations or were you remembering something? She looked at the older man's face, and it was creased with worry and maybe a hint of fear. What things, Belle? What did I shout? Do you feel up to telling me? Yes, of course, if you're worrying about it. Okay, well, Gus, you were shouting in German, and much of it I didn't get, but there were very clear Heil Hitlers, then there was Ras Ras Schau Schnau. I asked you what was wrong, and you said something about Himmler's orders and killing them. You will obey these orders, now kill them. Gus now had a face full of fear. He looked at her like an animal which knows there is no escape. But Belle had to continue. She waited a moment, then added, then you said kill them, 3 a day all week, dirty Jewish swine. Belle started to cry. Gus tried to put his arm around her, but she shrugged it off. Gustav, I want to know the truth. Was this a nightmare, a hallucination, or were you having flashbacks? Indeed, I want to know who you really are. Oh, Belle, how I've dreaded this day. And here I thought it was not possible. Belinda. Gus was struggling for breath, but Belle had enough of her father in her to press her advantage. Okay, you want to know the truth. So I tell you the truth. What will you do with it? Tell it to the birds? If I tell you the truth, it will change everything. Belle was determined. If you don't tell me, everything is changed already. I want the whole truth. I need to know who I am spending my days with. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. Okay, Belle, I will tell you. But it is a long story and a painful one. I need to think how best to explain. Do you know what I mean? Please, I am weak, tired, and afraid. Why are you afraid? Why? Two things scare me only. The first is that I have a friendship here with you like I never had. Yes, I have been like an uncle with his favourite niece. When I tell you the truth, you may not cherish this relationship anymore. Is that because of my Jewish blood? Gus ignored that. My other theory is out there. He weakly raised his arm in a half circle around the clearing. Out where? In the world we came from. I've lived, yeah, in England I have a life. Lonely at times, but I know people, I have a life. You fear punishment. I fear what? Not death. Change. I fear change. Here I am secure. In Britain I was a welcome citizen. I have a passport, a national health insurance number. I am part of the community. You could not ever stand, believe me. You cannot understand. Try me. Belinda, tomorrow I will tell you everything, I swear it. You'll tell me the whole truth? Yes, everything. Maybe it will help be for the best. Perhaps better would have been if I died. Belle didn't answer. She was distressed. She felt maybe she understood how her father had felt when he discovered his best friend was an informer for the British. And it was true. Her distressing night's sleep was something like her father's had been the night before Joe McElhinney had been interrogated and shot. Yet Belle knew as she tossed and turned in her tent that she had to know. It was like having an unexploded bomb in a building. You couldn't ignore it, you had to defuse it or blow it up, and either way it would bring change. But normal life could not continue until it had been dealt with. Yet as she lay there tossing and turning, she felt a fear inside that she had not experienced since the plane fell from the sky. Except perhaps in the river. This time it was not an aircraft that was plummeted into destruction, but maybe a relationship she treasured, and this fear was not that she was going to die, but was a sinister hand from the past. Gus had been a companion and friend, and he overflowed with the milk of human kindness, and now this evil from the past was going to turn the milk sour and foul-smelling. In the morning, Belle went to the waterfall area to wash, and as she combed her hair afterwards and dressed, she tried to examine her feelings. When she tried to get things properly in line, it was impossible. Yes, she knew old Gus, a man in his 60s. Did it matter what the old Gus was? Looking into the waterfall, she knew it did. They'd been drinking water from the falls for months and it tasted fine, but if they found it was from a polluted source anywhere upstream somewhere, they wouldn't want to drink it anymore. Whatever Gus had been did affect who he was now. His attitude affected who he was now. When she returned to the camp, Gus was up and he had prepared the breakfast. Belle told him off. "You're not well enough for that," she protested. "I have to start moving to get strong again. Anyway, today we need to talk, yeah?" Belle nodded. Yes, they needed to talk. But they ate a breakfast of nuts, berries and fruit and a cup of coffee in an awkward silence. Belle thought it defined well the change that was already in their relationship, because so often when they sat to eat, neither of them talked much, not because they found communication a problem, but rather the opposite. Words flowed between them with all the ease of wheels on a hill. So as to become so close, neither felt awkward and in the need of forcing speech in times of silence. That's the measure of a truly close friendship. Yet now they both felt so awkward, and neither knew how to break the silence. At last Belle said, "More coffee, Gus." "Yes, Belinda, please, and then we will talk." Belle poured freshly the beverage they called coffee, and she sat next to Gus. "Listen," she said, "I know this is not going to be easy for you, but Gus, I have to know who you are." "Yeah, Belle, I understand. Truth is, I've hidden in the shadows for so long I do not know how I am to find myself anymore. I don't know who I am anymore." "Take your time. Please tell me the truth." "I will, Belle. First I have to start way back. I was born in 1920. I had a family history. My mother was the great-granddaughter of a Count Edward von Gritsch. There had been wealth in her family. Her father was killed at the Battle of Verdun. My family were business people in the city of Dresden. Ah, Belle, my father sold musical instruments like his father before him, and people from all over Germany, Austria, France, Poland purchased violins, pianos, cellos from him. However, the war brought great hardship, the Great War. My father lost the business and we lived in poverty. As a boy I gathered coals on the railway banks to try and help. Also, my father was a violent man. He drank and he was aggressive. Life was hard. My mother tried to hold the family together. Helga, my baby sister, died. She got pneumonia when I was 6. I had a brother, Carl, aged 10, and a sister, Magdalena, aged 8. Things were tough. My childhood was not pleasant. Violence, crime, debt were all around us. My mother tried to feed and clothe us, but at times we had little food and our clothes were little more than rags. At school I was mocked because I had holes in everything. Mostly what I had was worn out by Carl before I saw it, and at times we ate crows and whatever else was placed in front of us. We ate or we were beaten harshly by my father. As I grew up a little, there was a lot of talk in Germany about suffering so badly. Why did we lose the war? Some blamed the government, some blamed the Kaiser. Among my father's friends, some thought it was all the fault of the Jews because they counted the money, or so it was said. When Belle heard mention of the Jews, she wanted to intervene, but she knew she had to listen. She prayed that she could stay calm and just let the older German talk the talk. Whereby my country was stripped of all I held dear. After the Great War, our economy was in chaos even before the bad events of the 1930s. The reparations imposed on us by the victorious nations at the Treaty of Versailles were unjust, extreme. Your own well-known economic expert, John Maynard Keynes, resigned from the British Treasury because he thought it was excessive. So, my friends, the picture's being painted as to why Gus became what he did. What did he become? The next episode reveals more. Thanks for tuning in to this story, and look forward to sharing some more with you soon. Bye for now. Bye.